The millennials are extraordinarily distinct, and in the polling, that our firm does, American millennials, and I'll leave the German millennials to our German colleagues, but are incredibly unique and have a huge impact. And as for the first question, they're not apathetic in the United States, and just by sort of basic measures of voter turnout, their performance has been very strong in the last two elections. But even by a broader measure of the way that they're transforming politics and transforming what it means to be engaged, that the ways to be engaged aren't simply by putting a lawn sign on or going to volunteer and knocking door to door, but by creating horizontal online communities that really have had a profound effect on how politics is exercised. But the other way that they have a huge impact is not simply by the energy by which they participate, but rather by the distinctness of their views. If you have a group who simply mirror the general electorate in their preferences, they can be very active, but they might not be courted much. But this is a group who is so completely unique, and that's a function, again, in a very unique way in the American context. It's not the same in Germany, where millennials are more sort of typical or even a little bit right of center of the average. But in the US, they're extremely liberal, and it's a product of the circumstances during which they came of age. I mean, there was sort of a perfect generational storm for this generation. I mean, think about it. Here you had, a generation who were the first generation of digital natives, and as they came of age for voting for president in 2008, one party was running a guy who has a BlackBerry or two or three BlackBerries. The other party was running a guy who wasn't even an analog native. He was born before the advent of television, and you had one party who was very in touch with the changing racial and gender diversity of society, with a guy whose last name may as well have been Change and who was himself interracial, and the other guy who was flirting with the right wing of the Republican Party. And I'm not trying to be partisan, but he went very far out during the primary process on issues including race, immigration, abortion, even issues where he was actually himself more moderate to appease the dynamics of the primary process. And you had a generation who were deeply offended by the way the American government through the 2000s had responded to 9/11 in prosecuting the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. One party nominates the guy who voted against Iraq, and the other party nominates an ex-fighter pilot who was the father of the surge. And in case after case, all these things helped shape this Obama generation to be much more liberal, so that they vote so atypically that's where a lot of their power comes from. They voted 66% for Barack Obama in 2008, 60%, a little lower in 2012, but even with that lower level, it's worth remembering they essentially elected or re-elected Barack Obama. Barack Obama lost among voters 30 years and over by 48 to 50%. But he won the younger voters 60 to 36%, such a massive margin that's a big part of their power.